What's happening to our country is being poisoned, and your schools and your children are suffering greatly because they're going into the classrooms, they're taking the seats, and they don't even speak English. It's crazy. And we have our people that aren't going into a classroom. We have students that were there last year. They're not allowed into the school this year. They're not allowed. It's crazy.
Dr. Amanda Weinstein, great to have you on the Ken Harbaugh Show. Our first time on the Ken Harbaugh Show. We've obviously had many conversations on Burn the Boats and Against All Enemies. But before we dive into this horrific appearance by Donald Trump last week at the Moms for Liberty conference, can you remind listeners what he is talking about, what he is alluding to when he uses that phrase poisoning or poisoning the blood? That is not an accident.
Oh no, that is a very loaded term that goes to a lot of myths and misinformation about even Jewish people and the things that they did to people. Like, it is very clear. It is a dog whistle that he is trying to use about Jewish people doing terrible things, which just, there's no basis in reality or no basis in fact, which is not shocking. Nothing he says really has any basis in reality or fact. But he is trying to really malign immigrants in the most vicious ways possible that he knows how to do.
And that phrase, poisoning the blood, is nearly a direct lift, if you translate it that way, from Mein Kampf. It's Hitlerian language that we've actually gotten used to. We had this conversation a few months ago when he first rolled that out, and people were upset. And it's just an indicator of how desensitized we've become, that quoting Hitler, a former president, or borrowing language from Mein Kampf is now, it passes us by.
It's normalized. And you even hear people talk about this when they talk about Moms for Liberty, quote unquote, accidentally quoting Hitler. It's not an accident when you use the quote and you actually attribute it to Hitler. It's an accident if you use a quote having no idea he said that. It's not an accident when you know it's from him and you quote him as this quote is Hitler's. This is not an accident. And language like that really pretends that this isn't really severe, that we are trying to model our country after Hitler's Nazism in Germany.
While I stage this next question, I'm going to throw up a screenshot of that flyer or pamphlet that Moms for Liberty used that Hitler quote on. But this is from the New York Times reporting on the convention they just had last week. And it gives you an indicator of where they want to take the country. The group, which has more than 130,000 members across the country, has become quite influential in Republican politics. Their parental preoccupations were made apparent by the programming and pamphleteering on display. There were panels called, I'm trying not to laugh, because it's serious. There were panels called, "What Does It Mean to Abolish the Department of Education?" and "Moms Know Best, Protecting Kids from Secret Gender Transition in Schools." The level of conspiracy theory that is driving this organization and that Donald Trump helps to amplify would terrify the average American if they knew what this organization was advocating.
Oh, I mean, Moms for Liberty is very clear that they were helping to advise on Project 2025, who has just been lambasted by people on the left and right. This is one of the orgs advising on Project 2025 to do things like destroy the Department of Education. And the problem is here, the Department of Education very much tries to ensure that every kid has an opportunity to succeed. They do not want every kid to have the opportunity to succeed, and especially not through public school, which is how we give every kid the opportunity to succeed, right? So when Kamala Harris talks about things like the opportunity economy, let me be very clear, that relies heavily on every kid having the opportunity to go to school, which they advocate against. They are very much for destroying our education system. And this goes back to when we integrated our schools, right? This has a long history that once we integrated our schools, there was a very small sect of people who did not want integrated schools. And you can draw a line from these segregated academies to vouchers to where Moms for Liberty is today. And I want to be clear, they have 130,000 members, right? Compared to the population of moms across the country, this is tiny. This is a tiny subsector of moms who think this way. When you look at organizations like Red, White, and Blue, who have millions of members across many states, right? We focus so much on a very extreme subsector of women while completely ignoring the majority of moms who want public education, who want their kids to be able to read books. And it's just irritating to see us focus so much on this group of extremists while ignoring what most Americans, what most moms want for their kids.
100%, Amanda. And I am so glad you bring up the point about relative size of Moms for Liberty versus other mom-centered or parent-centered organizations, because they are much louder than their numbers would suggest. They're just a loud, obnoxious organization, and their candidates, their endorsed candidates, have been getting their butts handed to them in elections for school boards and city councils across the country. But one of the things I am picking up on, and it came through in Trump's appearance at their convention, is that he seems to be running out of people to attack. I mean, his go-tos have always been immigrants and the media and Democrats, and now he's adding kids to it. I mean, he's making kids a target of his rants, and recently Gold Star families. I mean, I think it is a sign of a campaign in crisis and near octogenarian in serious decline that he is attacking whoever he possibly can. And God, I hope it's wearing out. Most clothes are uncomfortable or too tight or never actually the size you really are, not to mention the annoyance of trying to put a good outfit together. Everyone wants to dress their best and look good at all times because, frankly, it's a confidence booster. So here's the deal. Men's closets were due for a radical reinvention, and Rhone stepped up to the challenge. Their commuter collection is the most comfortable, breathable, and flexible set of products known to man. They help you get ready for any occasion with the Rhone Commuter Collection, which offers the world's most comfortable pants, dress shirts, zips, and polos. You never have to worry about what to wear when you have the Rhone Commuter Collection. Their 4-way stretch fabric provides breathability and flexibility that leaves you free to enjoy what life throws your way, from your commute to work to your 18 holes of golf. It's time to feel confident without the hassle. With Rhone's wrinkle release technology, wrinkles disappear as you stretch and wear the products. It's that easy. With Gold Fusion anti-odor technology, you'll be smelling fresh and clean all day long. And on top of that, Rhone is 100% machine washable, so you can ditch the dry cleaner altogether. I absolutely love Rhone. It's comfortable yet professional and has truly become my favorite clothing brand. We're on the move a lot, whether it's jumping from meeting to meeting or catching a flight or an important dinner. The Rhone Commuter Collection has never let me down. The versatility and overall comfort of the collection is undefeated. Even after I wear it all day, I still feel super fresh because of that Gold Fusion anti-odor technology. The Commuter Collection can get you through any workday and straight into whatever comes next. Head to Rhone.com/boats and use promo code BOATS to save 20% off your entire order. That's 20% off your entire order when you head to RHONE.com/boats and use code BOATS. It's time to find your corner office comfort.
The entire GOP's political platform is based on the inane rantings of an old man. And it's not just his rantings, right? This is their platform, and they have policies connected to all of his rantings, including on transgender kids, right? Their goal is to divide and conquer by dividing this country and conquering it so that they can put in place a dictatorship. And one way they do that is they look at for a small subsector that they think no one will come to their defense. They look at transgender kids, right? And then they come out with outlandish lies. Like you send your kid to school and on the teacher's like break period, they somehow have time. They don't have money for books and the teachers aren't paid well, but they somehow have money and time to set up an operation table and give your kid a surgery while they're at school. It's just insane, the things that he says. And they are using that as a platform to build policies to prevent parents from getting their kids the help they need, even from seeing a therapist for a kid who's struggling with their identity. And it is just crazy the way that they talk about parents' rights with Moms for Liberty. Meanwhile, the Republican Party is doing everything they can to regulate away parents' rights, whether it's your right to reproductive health care, your right to seek a therapist for your child, your right for you to get to choose which books your kid reads. They're trying to take all of that away.
Yeah, they are. And I hope folks can see it. I'm wearing the Read Books shirt today for the interview. Yes. I want to play this quick clip of J.D. Vance being called out on this hypocrisy, because you're right. The Republican Party is coming after all of it. They've come after IVF. There are senior Republicans who are coming after birth control, and the Trump Vance ticket is scrambling to distance itself. But the problem is they have created this environment. Trump takes full credit for Dodd's, for the elimination of Roe. J.D. Vance is on the record multiple times saying things like the federal government should have the ability to monitor women who are traveling for healthcare. Here he is on Jake Tapper's show.
Is birth control part of that policy, empowering women to be able to make those decisions before they get pregnant?
Look, obviously people need to be able to make those decisions. I don't think that I know any Republican, at least not a Republican with a brain, that's trying to take those rights away from people. But I think it goes deeper than that.
I mean, I could provide a list for you if you wanted.
Well, okay. Not anybody I talk to, Jake.
You're right, Amanda. They're coming after all of it. Their denials don't hold up. And I think it's appearances like Trump's at Moms for Liberty that remind us how extreme, not just the fringes of the Republican Party are, but how extreme the leadership of the Republican Party is right now.
Absolutely. When you hear their extremism on reproductive health care, when you hear a party who wants to take away birth control, they're being very clear. It was never about abortion. We know that giving women access to birth control prevents abortions, right? That was never the goal. The goal was to control women as a large portion of the population who can no longer speak out and become active in preventing things like their dictatorship and the type of country that women would like to see versus the type of country they would like to see, right? By controlling women, you eliminate half the population and you make it easier to do what you want and to put forth your agenda.
As usual, you hit the nail on the head. I want to end with this clip of J.D. Vance speaking almost perfectly to that point, and his disdain for women, for childless women in particular, comes through. We know this about him by now, but this clip was just dug up from a podcast interview he did a couple years ago. Credit again to the MeidasTouch network here. And it's chilling stuff. Amanda, thanks for joining us. We're gonna say goodbye with this clip of J.D. Vance.
Thanks, Ken. Great to chat.
And so the idea that somehow they're pursuing racial or gender equity is like the value system that gives their life meaning. Well, of course, they all find that value system leads to misery, leads to unhappiness. And so I think that what happens is, like, whenever you really pursue something, right? Like, let's say a doctor gives you a medicine to cure a disease and it doesn't work, right? The patient gets worse. Well, you can conclude one of two things. Either the medicine isn't working, or the patient was so sick that what they need is even more of the medicine that you originally prescribed. And I think the gender inequity stuff is like, we need more of the medicine. Okay, clearly this value set has made me a miserable person who can't have kids because I already, passed the biological period when it was possible. And I live in a 1,200 square foot apartment in New York and I pay $5,000 a month for it. But I'm really better than these other people. What I'm going to do is project my like racial and gender sensitivities on the rest of them. And like the reason that our society is broken is because these people don't think the exact way that I think. Even though the way that I think has made me a miserable person, I just need to make more people think like that. So we're going to teach this in our schools, in our universities, even in our elementary schools, because once everybody agrees with me, then everything will finally come full circle and we'll have a happy, healthy society.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Midas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.